All right, let's talk about something that is, well, it's everywhere right now. Generative AI. It feels like it's changing the world in the blink of an eye. So let's dive in and figure out what's really going on. So what is generative AI really? I mean, that's the big question, right? It's on everyone's mind. And don't worry, over the next few minutes, we are going to get a super clear answer. I mean, you've seen the headlines, right? This is the tech that can whip up a poem, create some mind-blowing art from just a few words, or even write code. It feels like magic. But what's the trick? How does it actually work? Okay, so to really wrap our heads around this, we can't just stare at generative AI by itself. We actually need to zoom out a bit and see where it fits into the whole big, wide world of artificial intelligence. I like to think of it kind of like one of those Russian nesting dolls, you know? To get to the smallest doll in the center, you gotta open up the bigger ones first. So let's start with the biggest one of all. So that biggest doll, that's artificial intelligence, or just AI. This is the whole shebang. It's this huge field of computer science with one massive, ambitious goal: to create machines that can think, learn, and act on their own, kind of like we do. So just picture AI as this giant circle. It's the entire universe for this conversation, and everything else we're about to talk about, it all fits right inside of it. Okay, let's pop open that first doll. Nestled inside AI, you find machine learning, or ML. Now this is a game changer. It's where we stop trying to write a million specific rules for a computer. Instead, we just feed it a ton of data and let it figure out the patterns all by itself. So you can see how this works, right? Machine learning isn't some separate thing. It's a huge, powerful part of AI. It's one of the main ways we actually get to that goal of artificial intelligence. All right, time to go one layer deeper. Inside machine learning, we find deep learning, and this is where things get really cool. Deep learning uses these super complex structures called artificial neural networks, which, get this, are actually inspired by the human brain. And because of that, they can spot way more complicated patterns in data. And there you have it, our final doll. So you've got AI, the whole field. Inside that, machine learning, learning from data. And inside that, deep learning, using those brain-like networks. And right there, in that very center, that's where our star, generative AI, lives. Okay, so we've established that these systems learn from data. But what kind of data? Because it turns out this is a really crucial difference that completely changes how the machine learns. Well, you've got two main flavors. First, there's supervised learning. Think of this like studying with flashcards. All the data is neatly labeled for the AI. You know, this is a picture of a cat, this is a dog. The model just learns to connect the image to the right tag. But then you've got unsupervised learning. This is more like giving someone a giant, messy box of photos and just saying, hey, sort these. The model has to find the patterns and create the groups all on its own without any help or labels. And now we get to the real heart of the matter. See, within AI, there are two totally different kinds of models. And understanding this difference, this is the key to finally getting what generative AI is all about. So here's the big idea. On one side, you have discriminative models. Think of them as a critic or a judge. Their whole job is to look at something that already exists and slap a label on it. But on the other side, you have generative models. These aren't critics, they're the artists. Their job isn't to judge something, it's to create something brand new. Let's make this super, super simple. Imagine you show a regular AI model a picture, and you just ask it this one question. The model's only job here is to give you an answer, a label. It analyzes the data and says, yep, that's a dog, or nope, not a dog. It's just sorting info that's already there. That right there is a classic discriminative task. But now, let's flip the script. We're not asking it to label anything. We're giving it a totally different command. We're asking it to make something new. And this is the giant leap. The model doesn't just go find a photo of a dog from its memory. No way. It creates a brand new one right there from scratch. It takes everything it's learned from looking at millions of dog pictures and synthesizes a totally unique image. That is what makes it a generative task. Okay, so creating images makes some sense. But what about language? How in the world does a machine go from just recognizing patterns to actually writing a coherent sentence? What's so wild is that the basic idea is shockingly simple. At its core, a language model is just an incredibly powerful prediction engine. So if you give it a prompt like, I'm making a sandwich with peanut butter and its brain has seen that exact pattern countless times in the data it trained on. So it just predicts the most probable next word. And what's that going to be? Jelly, of course. Now, just imagine it doing that word after word after word at a scale that's almost impossible to comprehend. All right, so now we kind of get the how. But what about the so what? What does this all mean for us? What can you actually do with this stuff? Well, the answer is pretty much anything you can imagine. And we're talking way beyond just text and cool pictures. We're talking about generating speech that sounds completely human, composing original music, writing computer code, and even fixing it, creating video out of thin air. The list just keeps going. It's like the canvas for creativity just got infinitely bigger. And this right here really puts it all into perspective. It shows just how much our relationship with computers has changed. We started by having to write every single rule by hand. Then we moved into this neural network phase where we could just ask it questions like, is this a cat? And now we're in the generative wave. We don't ask, we command. We just say, create a cat. It is a truly fundamental shift. And that really brings us to the final and maybe the most important question of all. This tech is no longer just a calculator or a sorter. It's becoming a creative partner. So the real question isn't just what it can do. The real question is, for you, for me, for all of us, now that machines can create, what are we going to create with them?